everybody has their favorite Legend of Zelda game, and for me, it's a really, really tough choice. Because you have so many good ones to choose from. I'm constantly asked this question, and I never know what to say. But if I have to choose, it would probably be Twilight Princess. I mean, I guess, it's kind of obvious that I really, really, really love it, because that's the one that I picked, and I said, oh, I'm gonna write this and spend about 7 years of my life on it. And I guess, but still in the same thought, I will always have a special place for Wind Waker, and a very special place for A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening. Those two were my very first Zelda games that I ever played. So I think they'll always have like kind of a key element to me. But and I replay Link's Awakening at least once a year, and I replayed Link to the Past just a couple months ago, and got stuck on the last dungeon, but that's a whole nother matter, because I just wanted to get through it and not have to go out and get every other little item that you apparently still need, because you need the canes and you need the bigger magic meter. Otherwise, you're just not going to get through that temple. Anyway, but Link's Awakening is always a great one to go back to, because it's kind of not traditional Zelda. It's kind of cheesy the way that it's all a dream and everything, but I really kind of like that aspect of it, and it was great playing it on the Game Boy Color, if any of you remember those. Because it was so beautiful, and just like the whole windfish thing, and you see, and it's so great when, and it's constantly happening in Zelda games where everything's rehashed just in a new and different way, and I mean, you kind of see the windfish again with Levias in Skyward Sword, which was an amazing sequence. But I would say, but Link to the Past and Link's Awakening didn't have what I like most in stories, and that's good character development, because, I mean, you don't really have a whole lot of talking in those games. You didn't have a whole lot of character-based stuff start happening until Ocarina of Time, which was, in a league of its own, I think, and, but not my favorite. I kind of get a little bored with it now, I'm sorry. But it's such a great story, too. But I think what keeps drawing me back to Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, and I know this is getting to be a very long-winded answer, but it's the character development. You have Midna, I think, is one of those rare characters that you see go along this huge emotional and physical arc, and I guess that's what fascinates me about that story, is that, and essentially it's not Link's story, it's Midna's story told through Link's perspective, and he's a sidekick for probably the first time in the series, and I thought that was interesting, and I think what drew me to the project. But what I love most about Wind Waker is that Ganondorf, whom so many of you probably know, that he is my go-to favorite character of the entire franchise. He's finally given his kind of moment where he's basically says why he's he's done what he's done, and you get a real sense of who he is, what he wants, and why he does the things he does. And combined with the fact that he's destined to kind of fall into this whole like demise thing and be that person, it's kind of heartbreaking, because he does, but he doesn't have control over the fact of the course that his life's going to take. And I don't know, he has this quote, and I can't remember word for word what it is, but, and I think it sums up Ganondorf so well, but he basically says, you know, the reason why I wanted Hyrule for myself is that, you know, I'm stuck in this barren wasteland, and there's no life, and I look out and I see this kingdom that's rife with prosperity and life, and he's jealous of that, and he wants that, and he can't have that in a desert, unless he's in an oasis, I guess. But he looks out and he wants that, and it's so heartbreaking, and just a great moment in just the history of the franchise. It's just a great defining moment for that character. But yeah, so it would probably be between Twilight Princess and Wind Waker for my absolute favorite one. If I had to pick, it would be between those two, which surprisingly I've only played Wind Waker once. I've played Twilight Princess maybe 3 or 4 times all the way through, but I did play Twilight Princess, obviously. I think whenever you set out to write something, you have to have, you know, people are constantly saying, write what you know, and I know Legend of Zelda, and you know, I've never gone out, I've never gone horseback riding, I've never been in a sword fight, you know, I've never rescued a princess, I've never done any of those things, but I always think it's cheesy when people say write what you know, because technically that can be so limiting, and yet it's also so broad, because when you tell a story, it's not about Luke Skywalker has to go out and save the universe, or it's not Malcolm Reynolds has to go and find the planet Miranda. It's not those kinds. It's not. You're not writing Space Jockey. You're not writing Swordsman. You're not writing Damsel in Distress. You're writing people and emotions, and I've kind of gotten off track, but I mean, you're writing. When you write what you know, you write emotions that you know. You write emotions that you understand. So, like, all of that other crap, you can make up. And I think quite convincingly, if you really sit down and you apply yourself to it. But so I definitely did my research. When I first started out, you know, I was 17. I'm 24 now. So I've gone on my own emotional journey, and now that I'm going back and I'm doing revisions, for the final time, yay. I can add it. I can, you know, pepper in those emotions that weren't there before, and so I'm writing more of what I know, and I know pacing better. I know story structure better, and I'm fixing all these little things. So when you write what you know, that's really just the human experience. But then when you pick a genre and you pick a story, you have to do your research. So yes, I played the game, but I also, yes, watched other people, the walkthroughs of other people, and I always hate it when I would find a video and that person would talk all the way through it. I know you're doing a walkthrough and you haven't done it just so I can watch it. But sometimes when you watch a walkthrough, all you really want to do is watch it for the story. And especially for what I was doing, I had to find videos and certain walkthroughs that didn't have, you know, the audio and the voiceover on it, because whenever I write, perfect example, I was rewriting Rutella's sequence when she first appears, and when I wrote it originally, I had her theme song playing, but I didn't capture it the way that I wanted to, so I went back in and I added like a little descriptor to describe her voice a little better, and like a little chime of like a sad serenade that her voice emulated. And I would do things like that. So it was very important to me that I found videos that didn't have any of that stuff on it, because I would take sounds. There's like no voice acting except gibberish. So I would take music, I would take the sound effects and all that, and just like, because there's some sound effects that kind of just like kind of whoosh in and just like make you feel that emotion, and trying to capture that, you have to be able to hear it. So that was always something. And when I went back for my final revisions, as I'm doing now, I've tried very desperately to stay away from any outside influence in those areas, and trying to do it solely based on my memory of the story and of the landscape. The only time I ever went out of my way to actually, I think it was yesterday that I plugged in my GameCube and I queued up Twilight Princess, but it was only for one little detail, because I was trying to figure out what the landscape looked like in the northeast section of South Hyrule Field, for the chapter where Link's taking Tom and Ilia to Kakariko. So, and it wasn't the kind of landscape I wanted, so I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to toss that landscape out and kind of remold it a little bit into what I want, because I was trying to enrich the landscape, make it so much more vast in scope, because in reality, it's not going to take you one night to go all the way around this place and still have a few hours of night left over to talk a little bit. So that was unrealistic. And the first time I went through, I wasn't really paying attention, and so I've been doing that. As far as other things that I used to write, there was this great resource where, I can't remember his name now, but he wrote an entire transcript of the whole game, and even included things like, if you were to go back to like Ordon after the Goron mines, or after you defeated Morpheal or something, and it had every little piece of dialogue that had ever been spoken in the game. So that was a really great resource to just kind of like, first time through, I would kind of like copy and paste and put in, and then I would tweak it a little bit on some, and I'm still going back and I'm tweaking some dialogue that I'm just like, it's too convenient, or they really, I don't think, would say that, because I've lived with these characters for about 7 years now, and I feel like I know them a little bit, and I hope so I can say, no, Nintendo, I don't think Renata would say it that way. No. So that's been interesting. And I took a lot of liberty with Zant because I didn't think he was handled very well, and I loved that character so much. So I guess that kind of goes into the next question of which characters or character interactions that I enjoyed writing the most. Zant would definitely be one of them. I always really liked that character, and he was just always really interesting. He was very mysterious and sinister and had a very reserved quality about the way he moved and the way he spoke, and I was so upset when he was finally unveiled and he just like went cuckoo. And so I definitely, that was a place where I definitely took creative license and liberties to make him act the way that I felt should have been the intention. So that was a very fine line to kind of dance around, because he's very iconic in the way that he is in the game, is unveiled to be in the game. So I tried to capture what was in the subtext, what hadn't been said, and what hadn't been really too well thought out or executed, I guess. The concept of Zant was so great, and just the idea that he kind of has the mind of a child in the way that I should have a revelation, but he kind of reminds me of the way that I view Loki. If any of you have seen the Thor movies or whatnot, or read the Marvel comics, or Norse mythology, he's very thinks he deserves better, in kind of that Loki fashion, and the way that he wants to prove himself, and the way that he wants to be that grand image that is worshipped and respected. But Zant is much more childish. So I'll throw the Loki thing aside and talk Zant now. But because that was just a comparison. But Zant was just, he was underwhelming when he was unveiled, and I wasn't happy. So he was definitely, and for some reason I just really liked his character. I thought he was really interesting, and being able to take certain liberties and fix him was a fun and interesting challenge. And doing his fight sequence, Link and Midna, because in the game Midna doesn't really play a part in it, even though she's like, oh, I want to get this guy, oh, I want to get this guy. So she had to play a part in the novel, because it was that was her villain to take care of. I mean, as you see, she's the one who gets the last the last hit on him. She's the one who eventually kills him, even though he's reborn. And so that kind of resolves itself. And then when Midna kind of dies, spoiler. I mean, that leaves Link to be able to deal with Ganondorf, which was my other favorite character to play around with. He was difficult because I wanted to bring in more of the backstory. I wanted to bring in his what was going on in his head more. We didn't see enough of Ganondorf, like screen time of Ganondorf in the game, to really make me happy. So like doing POV shots, the camera terms in my head, doing perspective scenes from his perspective was an absolute treat. And doing those in the last chapters of the book was just great, I think. And it was really great saving that for last. And I think it's always difficult, because when you introduce your key villain for the first time, like 7 chapters before the end of it. That spells danger. But it was a little bit more okay because you saw him like at the direct, like halfway mark of the book and end of the game. So you were kind of told he was there. It wasn't just thrown at you. But I definitely wanted to do more with him, so that brought on the idea of, this is Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time. And when I was first writing, some of those scenes, Hyrule's Historia hadn't come out yet, so a lot of this stuff wasn't official. So I had to kind of use my imagination, use research and whatnot, and throughout the years, it's been revised and fixed to the point that it is now. But it was always really fun to get in Ganondorf's head, just for the fact that it's so hard to write an interesting and three-dimensional villain, because every villain is the hero of his own story. So if you set out to make the most awesome villain, and you say that, like, I want to make a great bad guy, you've already lost. If you set out and you say, I want to make this really great character, this really great antagonist, villain is such a bad word when it comes to writing a villain, because they're not evil, they're not villainous, they are the hero of their own story, as I've said, and they just take a different method to their madness. And tapping into that madness and that method was really, really fun. Just the shots when he's remembering shots. Again, the camera stuff. I watch too many movies. I write too many movies. But no, just the parts where Ganondorf, where you're inside his head and he's looking at, Twilight Princess Link, and he's remembering that 10-year-old kid from Ocarina of Time, because in this timeline he never met, adult Link, so he's remembering that little kid that, like, threw a wrench in his plans and whatnot, and it was so great to write those emotions. It was so much fun. But Midna and Link's relationship was I think probably the first thing that kind of drew me to the story. So their interaction was and is probably the reason that I write Twilight Princess. That relationship has so many ups, downs, zigzag, climb up here, I'm up here, I hate you, and then down here, I'm annoyed with you, but I kind of like you. It goes through all of these kinds of twists and turns and bends, and it's so interesting. And at one point, Minda can be super sarcastic to him, but like 2 seconds later, she's feeling sorry for him, and kind of the same with Link, and writing that relationship and building it and building toward that moment in the end. It was really, I hate to say it was effortless, but it was sort of easy, because I loved the characters so much. So in the beginning, like in the first draft of it, it was pretty easy to kind of stay in that mentality. It was always fun jumping between, like, every single character. Like, when you had scenes where, especially where, like, they're in talking with the group, and you have 6 of your main characters with such distinct personalities and ways of speaking. It was always fun to kind of do, Shad speak, and then, intercut it with, all these different characters speaking, and the roughness of Ashe, and, then you have Aru telling his stories, and then you've got Russell coming in and kind of being like, whoa, okay, let's think about this. Be rational, And then, you know, you've got, you know, the boisterous, you know, Telma, who's like, well, honey, and, you know, those kinds of words. And then you just have Link, who just, you know, kind of stands there and doesn't say a whole lot. But it was always fun writing scenes where you had a huge amount of characters, because, I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with me, but it was just so much fun to just jump between all of these guys, and it was such a treat. But definitely Link and Midna were just fascinating in the emotional sense, and the way that they treated one another throughout their journey, the way that they grew to appreciate and then kind of, you know, mirrored each other's traits in a way. And that was always something that I really loved about the game, and was absolutely I just absolutely wanted to capture that and put it to text. So that was definitely a fun element to it. Another great relationship to do was always Link and Russell, because interestingly enough, Russell in the game is actually supposed to be more of a big brother, and so Colin is supposed to be more of a nephew figure, because Bo is actually supposed to be the father figure. But I wasn't feeling that, and Russell just looked way older than he was supposed to be, so that turned into a surrogate family. And it was never said in the game where Link came from or how Link came to be living in Ordon. So I just kind of stole the Ocarina of Time story, because it's the most iconic origin story for Link. But I never wanted to dwell on it too much, so that had to be resolved. So resolving that with Russell actually going with Link to the Temple of Time was the perfect way to do that. And I was kind of tired. It was always Link and Midna doing this stuff, and it was a tried and true formula, but it was getting a little repetitive and a little bit old. So playing around with that relationship and really delving into it was a lot of fun. There's still, and I don't get it, but there's so much controversy over the fact that Link tells Russell that he about his journey, and I believe tells him about his transformations into the wolf. Either that or that was the only thing that Link didn't tell him. Now I can't remember, but there was this huge controversy that conversation even took place. But it was like the one thing where I was like, no guys, nope, this is the one thing that I get to keep. I'm not changing it like it did King Boblin. So just fat chance I'm keeping it. There were a couple of controversial things that I've been very adamant about. No, this is the version of the story that I'm telling. So you can just kiss it and leave if you don't like it. But no, and then another thing that I liked about putting Link and Russell together, that it kind of mirrored the Ocarina of Time manga, because in that, Mido actually goes with Link into the Forest Temple, and I thought that was interesting. And I can't remember now if I wrote my thing before I read that, or if I read that and then I did it, but I'm pretty sure I did it before I even found that out, which was cool. And I was like, oh, that's neat, okay. Great minds. So that interaction was always great, and maybe it's cheesy, and I kind of feel guilty about the fact that whenever Link encounters something new in Hyrule, or like the Diababa, or Armagoma, or things like that. There's always this little thing, this couple of sentences that says, oh, well, back when Link was a kid, Russell told him stories about this or that, and Russell got around, I'm telling you, to know all of these stories. It's just crazy. But that was kind of my go-to thing, but I think it served a purpose, and every time that I added in something like that, it always kind of hit home and made it, kind of circle back to the beginning of, he's a stranger in this kingdom, and his only interaction with it is during this great quest, and the only foreknowledge he ever had was growing up with the smithy in Ordon and getting told all these amazing adventures, and that was always key, I guess, though, because all of Russell's stories were the thing that kind of emboldened this sense of adventure in Link, in my version of Link, and really made him kind of want to go out and do this in the first place. So I think it was always, even though it might be cheesy to constantly, kind of explain it away with, oh, Russell told him this when he was 9 years old, it was important. And then, in the very end, when Russell is, that was one of my favorite parts of writing the Link-Russell relationship, is when Link is down in, every time he gets knocked down with his fight against Ganondorf, you get to see the reactions of everyone he's ever encountered on his journey, and the one that always really hit home for me was Russell, because that's basically his son down there, right about to die, and he's kind of having this life flash before his eyes kind of scenario happening, even though he's not the one dying. His son is dying for him, and he's just remembering all these wonderful things about this young child that he brought into his life, and that came into his life, smiling and happy and crying, and it was always so wonderful writing those precious moments with Link and his family. So Colin was always a really great character to put with Link as well, and I'm still quite sorry that I didn't get to fool around with Yuli as much, but it would have detracted from the pacing and the structure of the story. And she's not incredibly important as a character, although she's interesting. But those were definitely the characters and the interactions that I loved the most about this adaptation. It was so much fun to write those characters, and it was so fun to write those characters. Yeah, I could go on and on and on about all of that. I didn't really per se take any examples from literature that had any kind of impact on me. When you're a writer, when you first start writing, you borrow different styles from your favorite authors, and it's been so long ago that I finally found and developed my own style that I don't remember where all the pieces and parts came from, but my favorite books, Count of Monte Cristo, I really like the Dragonvarld series by Margaret Weiss, Jedi Trial, one of the Star Wars books. Can't remember who wrote it right now. Ah, that's terrible. But I loved that. I guess a big influence, but not really a big influence, was and is, because I still haven't finished the darn thing, Wizard's First Rule. From the Sword of Truth series. And I really got into the TV show Legend of Seeker and all that and whatnot. But that was way after it started. But when I was still writing like the last chapters and whatnot, I would always kind of read a chapter of Wizard's First Rule to kind of get me in the mindset of, oh, heavy narration, oh, fantasy. Because I didn't want a talky kind of book. I wanted a book to where, I mean, you know the conversations, you know what happens, I mean, if you've played the game. And if not, especially, the book needs to be something that describes things to you. It's show, not tell. I think that that is a key thing in writing. You show, you don't tell. But I just lost track of that. but I would read those little, like, things like that to kind of get me going in the mindset of, oh, I'm writing fantasy right now. Let me put away my Firefly. So it was kind of, that was really the only thing that I guess I can say that there is a piece of literature I read that when I read it, I said, I don't want my book to be like this. So no hate for Jason or Rich, because he emailed me back and kind of helped me figure out how I was supposed to go about publishing. So no hate for you right now. You did a wonderful thing. But he novelette, I don't consider it a novel. It's 106 pages. He wrote a version of Ocarina of Time. The illustrations in this book are, I have it, I bought it to read it. And it was not what I expected. The illustrations were screenshots from the game, and they weren't even, didn't even try to, like, cut off, like, you know, the gameplay aspect of it and just give us a screenshot. And I remember the Dodongo battle was about a half a page long, and the pages were like, you know, this yay big, and big text, and half a page long. Oh, look, he threw a bomb in his mouth, and yeah, it's over. And it wasn't a realistic adaptation, but you know, that's not what he was going for, so I can respect that, I guess. But so I knew what I didn't want. I wanted to keep with the realism. I wanted to tell this Lord of the Rings kind of scope fantasy and stay true to the elements of the game as well as I could. So there's like 2 treasure chests in the whole game. There's no hearts, which Mr. Rich's book did. If he got low on health, he went out and he found a heart, and he felt better. It's so cheesy. So I made sure to not do that. So I mean, that was, you know, kind of an influence there. And strangely enough, I mean, for anything in life, strangely enough, your worst experiences can be your best. For instance, like when I did a short film in college, I didn't have the best experience working on that movie, as far as who I worked with. Most of them were alright, but there were a few that made it just horrible. And when I did my feature-length movie, it was a great time to be had, and I'm so glad I did it. It was trial and error, and it was hell. But you learn the most from things like that. So I mean, that's why, like, if you want to be a filmmaker, you watch the bad movies too to learn what not to do. So when you want to be a writer, you read the bad books too. I read Twilight. I tried to read New Moon. I couldn't do it. It's a piece of shit. Sorry, Stephanie Meyer, but it was a piece of shit. And I don't apologize for any tryhards out there. I'm sorry. I'll speak my mind. But you read the bad stuff too, the stuff that you don't like, so that you figure out what you do like and what you want to do. As some of you know, I did an audiobook version of the opening sequence to the prologue, and I posted it online. It's like 2 minutes long. Here's the thing, I would love to continue with doing that, but I don't think I'll ever have the time. Would it be cool if somebody else took it and did it? Yeah, that would be awesome. I think that would be great. Just don't do it until I finally finish all my revisions, please. But something that I would have, that has kind of teased my brain, that I would love to do. I would love to take this when it's finally done, put together like a voice acting cast, like a full cast, and do it that way, as an audio book kind of a deal. That would be like so much fun to do, and I would love to do it if I had, a way to do it, a way to organize it, and I have a microphone. I have a good microphone. I could, do it myself. That's what I recorded that 2-minute thing on. But I don't know when I would have the time to do it. But if I found a group of people that wanted to do it and were good at voice acting and they could do it really well, I mean, not half-ass it, but if I could find people that would love to do it and would, wait and would do it within a span of 5 years or however long it took us to actually complete it and compile it and put it together, that would be the most amazing thing if we could do that. But I'll probably never be able to find the time to do anything like that. So if somebody wanted to organize that themselves and just, and one person go out and do an audiobook, which somebody asked me if they could go out and do it once. I think it was Emily something. And I was like, yeah, go for it, but just please wait till I'm done revising. But I mean, if anybody wants to go out and take even little excerpts from it and record it and post it online, that would be amazing. That would be so cool. I would love to hear that. So if you want to do it, and post a link where I can watch it or whatever, listen to it. But no, that would be really cool. That would be like the coolest present ever. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, I would probably, I don't have time to finish the one I started. But like I said, to get a whole cast together would be so much fun. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. But no, I mean, I'll never get around to it. So realistically, I would never get around to it. So if somebody out there wants to go and do it, tell me. And I would definitely keep a lookout for that and want to stay updated on that, because that would be pretty fun. Just get good people, please. Don't half-ass it.